Good afternoon. This is Paul Lennon with Life After the Legion of Christ. Leaving the Legion of Christ. This is tape 28 in English, corresponding to chapter 11 as I saw it. We're still in chapter 11, I would say part E. So bear with me. Welcome. How about that for an introduction, huh? Pretty nice. Right. We have clarifying two things today. At the beginning of our transmission, we spoke about the knack of finding the right book at the right time, which I attributed to my God-given instincts, sometimes survival instincts. But let's be clear here. The John Powell books were introduced to me, or I was introduced to them, excuse me, by the sister of one of my students at the School of Faith in Mexico City around 1976 and the following. So thank you very much for the sister of the lady. And now this second book, which I'm talking about today, the second journey, was given to me, I believe, by Declan there somehow or other. I don't know how or where, but I think it was through him that I got my hands on that book. Not sure whether I bought it or something. Maybe I bought it in Easton's in Dublin. I don't know, but that's the book, and I want to show it to you today. It is still available. The second journey, spiritual awareness and the midlife crisis. So I was just remarking how everything kind of like a triple whammy here, leaving the Legion, priesthood up in the air, and um, and midlife crisis. But I'm 41 because, excuse me, I'm 41. So, mhm. I was in very bad situation there, emotionally, one might say, and I read the book very, as I was saying, very, very passionately, like I do some things, and uh, and that's what I'll be doing. I started making some annotations in the margin of that book, which I was sharing with you. We'll continue with that today. And let me say, we're talking about recovery here. We're talking about getting your life back together again. And here you will see me asking myself some hard questions. So, as I say, the path to recovery is not it's not denial, not minimization, and thirdly, I'm starting to ask myself, what part did Paul play in that? Because Paul is going to take responsibility for himself, not so much blaming the Legion. I will critique the Legion, but I will try not to blame the Legion uniquely for my situation. I will have to take responsibility for where I am, and I'm gutted, and I know that. That's the good news is I know it, and I know I will need help, and I will seek help. As I just said in the last session, who will save Paul and who will rescue Paul? Well, nobody will rescue Paul. Paul will have to save himself. And this entails asking some hard questions because, brothers and sisters, I do not want to remain a victim. And if I have done so, I want to move beyond that. I want to move to taking responsibility. Let us return here and let us try to be brief today, too. Let's turn over a new leaf and be brief. I just finished the last session with a very prophetic stance. What about me? Who's worried about me? Who's going to help me? Who cares about me? That's very egoistical. I'm sorry. I'm going to be very selfish. Who's going to save Paul? Only Paul. Paul must save Paul. Paul will save Paul. There's a decision. And second annotation here, breve. Swords, County Dublin, January 16 to 17, 1985. After speaking with Martin Devlin early yesterday morning, from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., about my life in the Legion, he used the phrase, the CE little phrases, stifling, shit upon. The British would say, shat upon. Second reading, January the 17th, 1985, at 12:44 a.m. Tense. Tonight, I met with high school buddies at the Skylon restaurant on Drumcondra Avenue. My old school buddies. Joy at seeing them again. They are successful businessmen. I am proud of my generation. I'm also deathly sad. Do I want to close this 23-year cycle from July the 1st, 1961 until November the 11th, 1984? Closing the cycle of boyhood, youth, and early manhood. Remember the stages of a man's life. I believe it's Livingston or Levingston. Stages of a man's life. Early adulthood. So don't get too discouraged. If you're 30 or 40, still consider you early adulthood. I'm going to be transitioning to middle adulthood here. And this is where the midlife crisis comes in. Am I finishing the first journey? Tough question. Was the priesthood a way of making a decision without making a decision? I'm being very introspective and kind of tough on myself here. Just getting a little distracted with my music. Let's go on. So here's the tough question, right? For me, some introspection. Was the priesthood a way of making a decision without making a decision? In other words, did I kind of slide in to the priesthood? Did I slide into the seminary? First instance. A way of not facing life, a way of not facing personal responsibility, work, women, a way of putting off delaying options. Or was it as good as the decisions of my peers, according to our common degree of maturity? What did I want to do back then? I was idealistic, enthusiastic. I wanted to serve, help, do good, and be close to God. You had good family bonds, said Rory. My friend Matty said, the most unlikely fellow to go away for the priesthood. Certain things become clear to me. Money, making money, being rich is not an important value for me. People are important. Friendships, intimacy, tenderness, compassion, service, contributing to others' well-being, sports, happiness, enjoyment. I wanted to do something for others, not use them or dominate them, boss or intimidate them. To be or not to be a normal, ordinary man. I had repressed my needs, didn't think about them. They were latent, buried under the enthusiasm and idealism. I had wanted a helping profession. I had been swept off my feet by the Legion. What a good expression. I was wooed by the Legion. Think of the French. When the French talk about sects and cults, they talk about l'emprise. Wonderful word. It's kind of like the enchantment and being won over, being almost seduced and then bonded. That's a word from Steve Hassan and from the other very prominent researcher in the field, Janja Lalic. Third reading, January 24th, on the train from Ennis to Dublin. 2 months after my rupture from the Legion, at the end of my Irish sabbatical month, no great relief emotionally, no enlightening intuitions, no great breakthroughs, a few ideas. Get out of the Legion. Buy yourself some time. New approaches, new understandings, without stubbornness. Waxing poetic, floundering fright, no end in sight, no harbor light, beaming bright, lightening my plight. But thank you, Jesus, for this book. Bless you, friend. Bye-bye. Take good care of yourselves. I'm hearing that the COVID-19 is hitting my dear Guatemala. So now we can share in the sadness of others. But we've got to fight and take good care of ourselves.